Assalamu alaikum dear students, hope you all will be fine. Let's start today's lesson, Gaseous Exchange Part 2. In this lesson, we are going to talk about the gaseous exchange in humans. In humans and other animals, the exchange of gases is carried out by the respiratory system. We can divide the respiratory system in two parts, the upper passageway and the lungs. Let's see the air passageway first. The air passageway consists of the parts through which the outside air comes in the lungs, and after the exchange of gases, it goes out. This passage of air consists of the following parts. The nose encloses the nasal cavity. It opens to the outside through the openings called the nostrils. The nasal cavity is divided into two portions by a wall. Each portion is lined by fine hairs and mucus which filter the dust particles from the air. The mucus also moistens and warms the incoming air and keeps its temperature nearly equal to that of the body. The nasal cavity opens into the pharynx by means of two small openings called internal nostrils. Pharynx is a muscular passage and is common to both food and air. Pharynx extends to the opening of the esophagus and the larynx. The air goes from the pharynx into the larynx, and we know that glottis is a narrow opening at the floor of pharynx which leads into the larynx. The glottis is guarded by a flap of tissues called the epiglottis. The larynx is a box made of cartilage. It is present between the pharynx and the trachea. It is also called the voice box. Two pairs of fibrous bands called vocal cords are stretched across the larynx. The vocal cords vibrate when the air passes through them. The vibration produces sound. The vibrations in the vocal cords and the movement of lips, cheeks, tongue, and the jaws produce specific sounds which result in speech. Speech is an ability that only humans are gifted with, and this is one of the characteristics which has put humans being superior to all. Larynx continues to the trachea, which is also called the windpipe. It is about 12 cm long tube which lies in front of esophagus. There are C-shaped cartilaginous rings in the wall of trachea. The cartilages keep the trachea from collapsing even when there is no air in it. On entering the chest cavity, the trachea divides into two smaller tubes called bronchi. The bronchi also have cartilaginous plates in their walls. Each bronchus enters into the lungs of its side and then divides into smaller branches. The bronchioles progressively lose the cartilages as they become narrower. The bronchioles end as fine tubules called the alveolar ducts. Each alveolar duct opens into a cluster of pouches called alveoli. The trachea and the bronchi are also lined with the ciliated and glandular cells. The glandular cells secrete mucus which moisten the ears and also trap any fine particles of dust or bacteria that have escaped from the nasal cavity. The cilia beat with an upward motion so that the foreign particles along the mucus are sent to the oral cavity from where it may be either swallowed or coughed out. The alveoli form the respiratory surface in the human body. Each alveolus is a sac-like structure lined by a single layer of epithelial cells. It is bound on the outside by a network of capillaries. The pulmonary artery from the heart, containing deoxygenated blood, enters the lungs and branches into the arterioles and then into the capillaries which surround the alveoli. These then join together to form the venules which form the pulmonary vein. The pulmonary vein carries the oxygenated blood back to the heart. All the alveoli on one side constitute a lung. There is a pair of lungs in the thoracic cavity. The chest wall is made up of 12 pair of ribs and rib muscles called intercostal muscles. The left lung is slightly smaller and has two lobes, and the right lung is bigger with three lobes. They are spongy and elastic organs. The lungs also have blood vessels that are the branches of the pulmonary arteries and veins. Each lung is enclosed by two membranes called the outer pleural membrane and the inner pleural membrane. The membranes enclose a fluid which provides lubrication for the free expanding and contracting movements of the lungs. The physical movement associated with the gaseous exchange are called breathing. There are two phases of breathing, that is inhalation and exhalation. During inhalation, the rib muscles contract and ribs are raised. At the same time, the dome-shaped diaphragm contracts and is lowered. These movements increase the area of thoracic cavity, which reduces the pressure on lungs. As a result, the lungs expand and the air pressure within them also decreases. The air from outside rushes into the lungs to equalize the pressure on both sides. After the gas exchange in the lungs, the impure air is expelled out in the exhalation. The rib muscles relax, bringing the ribs back to the original position. The diaphragm muscles also relax and it gets its raised dome shape. This reduces the space in the chest cavity and increases the pressure on lungs. The lungs contracts and the air is expelled out of them. The breathing movements are involuntary to a large extent. However, we can control the rate of breathing but not for a long time. Humans breathe 16 to 20 times per minute in normal circumstances. That is, at rest. The rate of breathing is controlled by the respiratory center in the brain. During exercise or other hard physical work, the breathing rate may increase up to 30 to 40 times per minute. And if we will see the comparison between the composition of inspired and expired air, we will see the amount of oxygen in inspired air will be 21%, while in expired air it will be 16%. Amount of carbon dioxide in inspired air will be 0.04%, while in expired air it will be 4%. Amount of nitrogen will remain same in both inspired and expired air, that is 79%. Amount of water vapor will be variable in inspired air but will be saturated in expired air. Amount of dust particle will be variable in inspired air and will almost none in expired air. The temperature will be variable in inspired air, while in expired air it will be almost equal to the body temperature. Thanks for watching the video. Like the video and subscribe the channel for more videos.